The crystal lights above the Beaumont ballroom glittered like they knew too much. The orchestra was playing something gentle, and the air smelled of champagne and magnolias. My brother Nate was glowing his suit pressed, his bride Sabrina smiling for every camera. My parents stood near the head table, perfect as always. Then my father raised his glass. "To family," he said. His voice carried across the room, smooth, commanding, to the future of the Beaumont name, and to Nate, who will soon make this family proud again. Applause scattered. I clapped once, polite. He turned toward me, and to my daughter, Lila, who's finally ready to give back what this family gave her. A pause. I felt my stomach tighten. He smiled, the kind of smile that expected agreement. As a gesture of love and unity, Lila will transfer her townhouse on Jones Street to her brother and his new wife. A new start for them, built on family support. The room went silent. Someone's champagne flute chimed softly against a plate. I said, "Excuse me." My mother's lips curved. "Don't make a scene." "Darling, everyone's listening. I worked for that house," I said quietly. Every line of code, every late night Edward Beaumont, patriarch of appearances, didn't lower his voice. "You'll do as I say. It is a wedding gift from this family. It's not yours to give." He stepped closer. The orchestra hesitated mid-measure. "Watch your tone, Lila. Watch your assumption." I answered. The sound of his hand meeting my face was sharper than the music. A sting bloomed across my cheek. Hot. Humiliating. Someone gasped. Somewhere. A glass hit the floor. "You've embarrassed us," my mother whispered. So low only I could hear. I looked at her, then at the guests frozen between politeness and shock. "No," I said. "You just did." My brother's voice cracked through the tension. "Dad, maybe enough." My father barked. I placed my champagne on the table. My hand didn't shake. "Congratulations." "Nate, I hope the house you wanted comes with a conscience." Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom, through the open doors, into the warm Savannah night where the air felt thick with rain and the scent of endings. The next morning, the bruise had faded, but the echo hadn't. I made coffee and stared at my phone until the screen blurred. There were messages from relatives, all versions of Be the Bigger Person. None mentioned the slap. By noon, my mother called. "Lila, your father regrets how it looked," she said. Calm as always. "How it looked," I repeated. "Not what it was. Families make sacrifices. You know that. I already did." I said, "Every time you called my work obsession selfish." "You're twisting my words," she said sharply. "We gave you everything. You gave me guilt. I bought everything else myself." A long silence. Then the click of her hanging up. I drove downtown to the townhouse on Jones Street, the house I'd restored after 10 years of saving. I had bought it for $1.9 million, poured another $100,000 into fixing its bones. Every brick, every beam was a promise to myself that I'd never crawl back. That night, my friend Elliot called from Atlanta. "I saw the video," he said softly. "Of course someone recorded it. It's already online. People are calling it the Beaumont slap." I closed my eyes. Perfect. Another family tradition gone public. "Do you want me to take it down?" "No," I said. "Let them watch. Maybe then they'll see what family pride costs." When I hung up, I opened the email drafts for work, but my fingers wouldn't move. From the street below, a wedding party passed by laughing, the sound thin and bright against the quiet. I turned off the lights, sat on the floor beside the window, and whispered to the dark. "They took enough of me. This house stays mine." 2 mornings later, my phone buzzed before sunrise. The subject line read, "Townhouse Transition." Attached were floor plans, furniture layouts, even paint colors labeled soft ivory. 12 names filled the group thread. My parents, Nate, Sabrina, a contractor, 2 decorators. Sabrina's message sat at the top. Margaret said you wanted this to happen quickly. We'll keep the downstairs room just as you left it. So thoughtful of you. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring. What is this? I said. Don't raise your voice. Lila, it's just practical planning. For what taking my house? Her tone sharpened. It is not about ownership. It is about legacy. Legacy? You're rewriting theft as family tradition. Stop dramatizing. Your brother and his wife need stability. And I don't. You chose distance. Now live with it. I ended the call and sat very still. Then the phone rang again, my father's number. Lila, he said, his voice gravel and control. You will sign the transfer papers before the end of the week. No, do not test me. I already did, I said, and you failed. There was a pause, just breathing on his end. Then the line went dead. By afternoon, messages poured in family harmony. Don't ruin Nate's start. Each word tightened around my throat. I packed a small bag, grabbed my keys, and drove toward the river. Rain hung heavy over the water, the kind that smells like tin and thunder. I leaned on the railing and whispered, You took my peace. You won't take my name. When I looked back at the city lights reflected in the current, they trembled like they were finally learning how to break. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of the river outside my window felt too much like memory. I pulled out the old Beaumont Holdings ledgers I'd taken years ago when I worked briefly for my father's company Yellowed Paper, my handwriting in the margins. A younger version of me still trying to be loyal. Back then, I'd found numbers that didn't add up payments hidden under maintenance accounts, transfers labeled consulting. When I'd asked my father, he'd smiled and said, You're too clever for your own good. The next day, the ledgers disappeared, and he told everyone I'd misunderstood. Now, I opened my laptop and searched state business filings. My name appeared where it shouldn't have. Lila Tech LLC, listed as a guarantor for Beaumont Holdings. A loan of $640,000. Signed not by me, but for me. The room tilted. I dialed my mother first. Why is my company tied to your loans? She hesitated, then sighed. Edward said you'd agreed. I didn't. Lila, please. He's under pressure. It's just a name on paper. It's forgery. I said, it's a crime. Don't use that word with your father. I will. And the next one too, fraud. Her breath quickened. You always want to punish him. I just want to survive him. I hung up and called Nate. He answered on speaker, his voice lazy. If this is about the house, it's about the loan your wife's furniture budget depends on. What are you talking about? Check the filings, I said. You're living off my signature. He laughed once, nervous. Dad said you'd make it ugly. It's already ugly. I'm just done pretending it's beautiful. The call ended. Outside, thunder broke across the sky, and I finally understood the storm wasn't coming. It had already started. By morning, I was already driving toward the old law office off Oglethorpe Avenue. The brass plaque still read Charlotte Wynn and Associates, though most of the blinds were closed. Charlotte had been my grandfather's attorney decades ago, a woman rumored to outthink men who underestimated her. She opened the door herself. Lila Beaumont, she said, her voice both warm and sharp. I wondered when you'd come back. I laid the printed filings on her desk. My father forged my signature. He used my company to secure a loan for Beaumont Holdings. She adjusted her glasses, scanning each page. $640,000. She murmured, bold, stupid. I want to make it stop. Charlotte looked up. You want justice, or you want spectacle? Neither. I said, I want them to see it fall. She nodded once. Then we do this carefully. 2 hours later, I met Elliot Crane at a cafe near Forsyth Park. He'd been my analyst back when I freelanced in Atlanta. Numbers never scared him. Only people. I slid a flash drive across the table. Track every transfer tied to that loan. If you find my name again, I want proof. Elliot frowned. You really want to start a war? It already started. I just didn't fight back before. That night? He called. You were right. I found multiple payments. Some routed through your LLC into your father's accounts. I exhaled slowly. Send everything to Charlotte. What are you going to do? Organize the wreckage, I said. If they want a family meeting, I'll host it. When the call ended, I sat alone in the glow of the laptop screen. Line after line of evidence filled the folder. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. By Thursday, the rain had settled over Savannah like a warning. I called Mr. Doyle, the caretaker who had served our family since before I was born. His voice still carried the weight of old loyalty. I need your help, I said. I think Nate and Sabrina have been in my townhouse. A pause. You want proof, I want eyes, I replied. That evening, Doyle sent me a video clip from the security feed. Nate stood at my front door, key in hand, while Sabrina posed beside him, smiling at her phone. The caption on her post read, Future Home. I forwarded the footage to Charlotte and Elliot. Within minutes, Charlotte called. They've just made your case stronger. You can file for fraud and harassment tomorrow. Not yet. I said. I need one last thing. Clarity. Clarity can be cruel. Lila, I'm used to cruel. By midnight, my living room was covered in folders and open laptops. I labeled 3 drives legal, financial, personal. Each file carried something they'd buried: a forged signature, a recorded voicemail, a text that reeked of entitlement. Elliot arrived near 1 in the morning with a flash drive of his own. Here, he said, the bank transfers, all linked. It's airtight. I looked at him. You didn't have to come. I did, he said quietly. You shouldn't face them alone. We worked in silence. Rain hit the windows in steady rhythm. When the power flickered, he asked, You're sure you want to do this? I closed another folder. They started this when they mistook fear for loyalty. At dawn, Charlotte called again. Everything's ready. I've drafted the filings and a restraining order in case you need it. Keep them close. I said, Tomorrow night, they'll all be here. When the line went dead, I looked around the room, documents stacked like a courtroom built from betrayal. I could still hear my father's voice from that wedding night. Hand over your house. I whispered to the empty room. You took enough. Now you'll take the truth. Outside, thunder rolled across the river, and for once, I didn't flinch. At 7 o'clock sharp, the bell rang. I opened the door to my parents, Nate and Sabrina. Rain threaded their coats. Perfume and impatience came in first. Let's be civil, my mother said, stepping past me like the house already recognized her. Civility begins with consent, I answered. Come in. My father scanned the foyer, calculating. You have done well here, he said. Now do right by your family. Charlotte Wynne stood at the end of the hall, hands folded, posture courtroom calm. Elliot waited by the dining table, laptop open. Mr. Doyle lingered near the door. A quiet sentinel. My father's jaw ticked. What is this, a meeting? I said. You wanted one. I set the agenda. Nate lifted his phone. For transparency, he grinned. Doyle shook his head once. Phone's away. The authority in his voice surprised even me. Nate sighed and pocketed it. My mother arranged her smile. Lila, the wedding was unfortunate. Let's move forward. Sign the deed transfer, and we can know, I said. My father's tone flattened. You will? I pulled out 4 chairs. Sit. They did. Reflex more than choice. Charlotte took the head of the table with the quiet ownership of a judge. My father leaned back. All right. Tell us what performance you have planned. No performance, I said. placing 3 folders on the table: crimson, navy, and black. Proof. My mother's voice thinned. Proof of what? Let's start small, I said, sliding the crimson folder toward them. Security footage. Elliot tapped his keyboard. On his screen, Nate and Sabrina stood at my front door. Sabrina posed, smiling at her phone. The caption over her image read, "Future Home." Sabrina's cheeks went pale. Margaret said, "Do not put this on me," my mother snapped, then flushed at her own tone. My father waved a hand. "You live in one house. They need a start. We are beyond quibbling." I opened the Navy folder. Then we are not beyond this. I placed the state filings in front of him. Lila Tech LLC listed as guarantor for Beaumont Holdings. $640,000 in loans. My name signed by a stranger. He didn't blink. "We used a family authorization. You were always meant to help. You forged my signature." He shifted to scorn. "You are overreacting." Charlotte spoke for the first time. "Mr. Beaumont, the document is criminal exposure." My mother reached for the page and read with widening eyes. "Edward, it says we kept this family standing." He cut in. "It says you put me on the hook." I answered, again. Nate leaned forward, bluff loud. "You think the town cares about your signature? They care about the Beaumont name." I looked at him. "The town already watched you slap me with your silence." Sabrina swallowed. "Nate, stop." I raised a small recorder and pressed play. My father's voice poured into the room, clipped. "Certain, unmistakable, use her company. She owes us for everything. Another clip, sign it for her. She will follow if she knows what's good for her." No one moved. Outside, the rain drummed harder. A metronome for shame. My father tried contempt again. Edited. Charlotte slid a notarized transcript across the table. Dated and verified. My mother's hand shook. "Edward, tell me you did not enough," he roared, and the roar sounded old. This staging, this betrayal. I repeated. "That's the word." He stood, palms flat on the table. "You think a few papers will break a house I built with my hands. You built a story," I said. "You left the math to me." Nate shoved back his chair. "You're not better than us." "Lila, I am not your provider," I said. He lunged, quick and clumsy. Doyle stepped between us, one arm out. "Sit down, son." Nate froze, met Doyle's eyes, and looked away. Charlotte placed a final document on the table, black folder, crisp edges, a restraining order application, prepared and ready to file. Harassment, attempted unlawful entry, fraudulent authorization. My mother exhaled like a punctured tire. "Lila, we are your blood." I kept my voice level. "You are my history." That is not the same thing. My father reached for the crimson folder and flung it wide, pages spilling like cards. "You want to humiliate me? You think this town will take your side over mine?" Elliot closed his laptop. "The town has already taken an interest," he said. Eyes on my father. "They prefer facts." Sabrina stood slowly. "Nate," she said, "we should go." He stared at her, as if the word go were a new language. I gathered the folders and stacked them neatly. "Here is what happens next. You will leave. You will not contact me. If you do, everything in these folders goes to the court and to the press. Beaumont Holdings will answer for every dollar taken in my name." My father's mouth curled. "And you will destroy your own family. You destroyed the idea of it." I said, "I am only refusing to carry the remains." Margaret pressed her napkin to her lips. A useless gesture. "Lila, please. Not the papers. Not the press. Then help him walk out." I said. Edward stared at me. A long, measuring stare I had seen since childhood, the one that counted my obedience like an asset. It did not find any. He spoke at last, quiet and cold. "You will regret this. Regret is what you sell." I said, "I am no longer buying." Doyle opened the door. The rain sound grew louder, insistent. My father stepped forward, then turned back as if to speak. But there was nothing left that would land. Nate followed, shoulders high, eyes glassy with a fight he could not win. Sabrina paused at the threshold and met my eyes. "I did not know," she whispered. "Now you do." I said. My mother stopped beside me, searching my face for the daughter who used to yield. "If we leave," she asked, voice threadbare, "is this truly finished? You will not call." I said, "You will not send anyone. That is the only way anything ends here." She nodded once, an old queen abdicating a ruined throne, and stepped into the rain. Doyle closed the door. Silence drew around us, new and exact. Charlotte touched the restraining order with one fingertip. "We file if they breathe in your direction." I looked at the stack of evidence. File when they try. Elliot spoke softly. "You held the line." I replaced it. I said, outside, thunder rolled across the river. Inside, I stood where I had once been told to be small and found there was no room left for it. Within a week, the calls began. First, whispers from distant cousins. Then, silence. By the second week, Beaumont Holdings was front-page news fraud investigation, forged documents, frozen accounts. Charlotte called one morning. "The bank confirmed your name was cleared. Your father's assets are under review." "Good," I said. "They will drag your name through every interview." "They already did." I replied, "Now they'll do it with proof." That afternoon, I saw Nate outside a cafe on Broughton Street. His suit hung wrong, his tie loosened, the shine gone. He spotted me and laughed without sound. "You won, I guess." I stopped losing. I said, "You could have handled it quietly. I tried that for 30 years. He looked down, thumb rubbing a coffee cup ring on the table. "Mom won't talk to me. Sabrina left. She left the lies. Nate, you can too." He shook his head. "You ruined him." I leaned closer. He ruined himself. I just turned on the light. He didn't answer, only watched the rain slide down the cafe window. I left before the silence turned into pity. That night, Charlotte texted headlines are calling it "The Fall of River Street." I stared at the words until they blurred. For the first time, the house didn't feel heavy. The air inside it was clean, even with the storm outside. Somewhere across town, my family's empire was collapsing. Mine had just begun. A month later, I met Charlotte and Elliot at a quiet cafe near Forsyth Park. The papers were stacked neatly between our coffee cups. Charlotte tapped the final page. "Once you sign, the Harper Fellowship becomes official $120,000 a year for women entering tech fields." I signed without hesitation. "Make sure the first recipient doesn't have a family name big enough to crush her." Elliot smiled faintly. "You could have kept that money." "I did," I said, "just not for myself." Charlotte studied me. "Do you feel finished? I feel free?" I answered, "That's close enough." Outside, a bus passed with my last name plastered on its side. Beaumont Holdings, now under investigation. The letters looked smaller than I remembered. Charlotte gathered the papers. "This isn't revenge anymore. Lila, it's legacy. Legacy without chains." I said, "Finally." As we stood to leave, Elliot squeezed my shoulder. "You built something clean from something rotten. That's rare." I met his eyes. It's survival. When they left, I stayed behind for one more cup of coffee. The air smelled of rain again, but it wasn't the same storm. This one promised quiet. The morning air tasted clean. I opened the balcony doors and let the sound of the Savannah River drift in. The city moved quietly, as if it, too, had survived something. Charlotte called just after sunrise. "It's done. she said. "The court finalized the orders. They can't contact you again." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. "Thank you. You earned this peace. Lila, peace isn't earned," I said. "It's built like anything worth keeping." After the call, I took the old family portrait from the mantel, Edward in his gray suit, Margaret poised, Nate grinning as if he'd already won. I set it on the counter, struck a match, and watched the flame curl through the edges until it was only ash. Elliot texted coffee later. I typed back, "Maybe. The day looks good enough without it." The river caught the sunlight then, a streak of gold cutting through the dark water. I whispered to it, maybe to myself. They taught me loyalty meant silence. I learned truth sounds louder. The wind carried the ashes out over the water. I let them go. There was nothing left to hold.